moving forward, that was very much like a rock in a hard place when we were looking at with 2020. It's getting bad now. And so I think DeSantis is great. He's like Trump in a lot of ways, but he's not a bombast. You know what I mean? So, of course, the media will go after him and try to vilify him, but he's more tactful. He's half the age of Trump.
He doesn't appear to be a narcissist either, which I respect.
I don't agree with a lot of his positions. And so I'm not saying I would vote for the guy. I'm just saying I probably would not support Trump, considering we've learned our lessons and we have an opportunity for, someone else. That being said, I've never been a big fan of the two-party system. Like I said, I didn't vote in 2012 or 2016. And 2020 was only because it was just a crazy time, to be completely honest. And now I'm like, it may get crazier. It probably will. We're in the lull year where there's no elections. Right. So things are calm. Views and ratings are a little low. Everyone's kind of chilling out. Midterms next year. It's going to be insane.
What do you think? Do you think the GOP have a chance to
definitely
take the House?
I think they will take it.
You think so?
There's a long way to go.
There's a lot of people running. It's really fascinating to see all of these. What's the new term? America First people running. I'm interested to see what they have to say for themselves.
This is what I'm saying. I think people have learned a lot of lessons. And that means that come 2024, I don't think Trump will be as necessary as people think he was last year or even right now. I think we're already seeing early signs that you've got a DeSantis, perhaps. Again, I'm not a conservative. I don't completely agree. I'd be more inclined to vote Libertarian, and that's only because of Dave Smith. Otherwise, I don't even know who I'd vote for.
Yeah, I need some like technology talk from Dave. Otherwise, I can't get on with the whole break it down concept. I've been listening to him lately a little bit, but he's been like, yeah, we need to undo this and undo that. I'm like, okay, give me, what are we going to do? What's next?
And I think here's the difference.
Like technology board or something. I'm down, Dave. Let's do this.
And absolutely. And I think what's inspiring about Dave is that he's a guy you can talk to. He's not out of reach and out of touch and more interested in, the consultants, what they're going to say, what size shoe or color tie or anything like that. That's one of the problems we have with the two-party system, is it's just machine regimented. And Trump kind of broke that in a lot of ways. But back to what you were saying about all these midterm people running, people are learning the lessons. A lot of America First types, a lot of populist types are now running, and there's a huge opportunity. I think what we saw in 2020, the overperformance in the in Congress of the Republicans, it's going to be even crazier. Because look, this is what happened with Trump in 2016. They take everything. Trump's voters came out for Trump and the Republicans. But in 2018, Trump's voters did not turn out. This is true. I went through the data years ago. In 2018, really? Trump's voters were less.
Okay.
And so that meant
for the midterms.
Yes.
Right.
So what happened was in 2016, when Trump's voters came out, they voted down ticket Republican. But because those people did not come out in 2018, to a certain degree was lost, Republicans ended up losing a lot of seats because of that.
That's when we got AOC and all those guys, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think 31 seats flipped from Republican to Democrat because without Trump's name on the ticket, so many Trump voters were first-time voters or independent voters. Now we're moving into 2022. I think a lot of people have learned lessons. And Joe Biden was the we'll take whatever we can get to stop Trump.
Right.
Now they've lost that. They have lost the name Trump as well. So how many regular people are going to come out in 2022 all dancing and cheering saying, and the orange man,
back the party that's been doing, by that point, will have been doing such a poor job of handling this whole COVID situation. And that's interesting too, when you watch the poll numbers dropping, the worse COVID gets and the less control over it the White House can maintain, the more Biden's ratings are going to tank. People are going to want him gone. He's staked his whole presidency on solving several crises. And that's why you see, you saw so much with COVID, but that's why they're trying to pivot so hard to climate. They really want to get to climate so that they can tackle the next crisis and be heroes again.
When you look at the disdain people had for Trump, and they did, I know a lot of people don't want to believe it, but Trump did increase his voter base by a large number. He had more votes than any sitting president in history, but Biden got more. And I hear from people who they don't believe it. And I'm like, dude.
What, the
I told
election fraud people?
Yeah, I told this to Steve Bannon. I know people who are as dumb as a box of rocks, who have no business in politics and couldn't tell you even the name of the parties, who are posting videos going and voting by mail, or who are posting the videos of getting their ballots and voting with them. And I'm like, listen, I believe when they say why did people vote Biden but not down ballot? I'm like, because they're not political people. They saw the celebrity on TV. The entertainment was shut down for a year. Nobody could go to the movies, and the people were screaming in their face, "Trump is evil," and they're like, and so they just write Biden, send it in. And the Republicans were able to take a bunch of seats in Congress. Mm-hmm. Now, imagine what's going to happen without the threat of Trump, and even the down ballot votes they did get. It's like, I think Republicans are going to do fairly well. They only need to win, 11 seats? There's a long time between now and then, so I'm not going to make any predictions. I don't know. I just think based on current trajectory, that may be a fair assessment.
But don't you think that there's also a chance that the Democrats are going to completely overhaul the voting system?
Yes.
I mean, if you look in California, Gavin Newsom has his recall election coming up, but California just made it possible. I'm pretty sure that you can print your ballots at home.
Ballots. Yeah, I saw that.
And then there's a lot of people can come and collect it for you and come and advise you on that. And they've done such an incredible job, the Democrats, of vilifying the different voting integrity laws that have sprung up in something like 22 states, 28 states?
Yeah, a lot.
Like a whole bunch of states. And if you actually, they say they're Jim Crow and they're exclusionary and discriminatory and all of this stuff. And if you actually look at those laws, if you take the time to read the laws, they don't say what the White House says they say. It's not about that. And if you read H.R. 1, I did a deep dive into H.R. 1, it's 800 something pages of rules about voting that have absolutely nothing to do with anything other than preventing states from making their own laws.
So I looked up it's called the remote accessible vote by mail.
Is this the California thing?
Yes, you can print your selections, sign the envelope, and then return the printed and signed selections either by mail or dropping it off in a voting location. The selections cannot be returned electronically. So the answer is yes. You can request to vote at home, print out your here's what it says. You download the application, mark your selections, print their selections, sign the envelope using the envelope provided with the vote by mail ballot or the voter's own envelope.
Cool.
That is not sketchy at all, you guys.
This is from sos.ca.gov.
Oh
Return the printed and signed selections either by mail or by dropping it off at a voting location. Well, there you go.
What?
You can now just print out your vote. This is, Ian, this is the opposite of blockchain.
Yeah. This is where my nihilism is coming from. It is blatantly obvious that if you have a proprietary voting machine counting votes, it's not secure, and that we have an opportunity to attempt to secure it with a third blockchain. You still do what we're doing plus a blockchain layer. But
literally zero security on the system.
So that's obvious.
Print out your ballot.
How has that not been adopted? That to me either shows that people are very stupid in general and we're just destined for extinction, or there are nefarious things keeping it from happening, which I think is more likely, which is terrifying. But how do you solve for that?
Humans crave to be told what to do. They don't want to think for themselves. You see, we're divergent. We're the weirdos who for some reason want to be responsible for ourselves. Everyone else just wants to be gently patted on the back as they rest in the lap of, Daddy Biden.
I mean, is it because...
It's so terrifying to, listen to you say that.
Is it because people that are truly free are dangerous to society?
People who are truly free, I don't think they should be perceived as dangerous. Our country was founded on the idea of the individual having, individual rights superseding group rights. And it's reversing course now. Now we're being told that we are idiots and cursed at, by various YouTubers or whatever, because we believe that individual rights supersede group rights. But obviously that's the only way to ensure that there's equality, is to put the individual's rights first. What is it, the whole thing about it's better that 100 guilty men go free than one innocent man be imprisoned. That's still true. That's still true.
You know what I love about that? Franklin took that quote from someone. I don't remember.
Blackstone.
Blackstone said it's better that two guilty people.
10. I
think it was the original quote was 2
10.
to 1. Are you
10.
sure? I think it was the original. It's like a Greek quote.
Blackstone's formulation.
Is that Greek?
No, it's from Blackstone. It's rooted in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well, the cool thing is
that makes a lot of sense.
If it is 10, I thought it was 2. 10. But if it's 10, then he took a power of 10. He took a magnitude greater.
And then Ben Franklin.
We should do that again. It's better that 1,000 people go free.
I agree with you.
That's why I oppose cash bail. I think cash bail is wrong.
Yeah, rich people buying their way out of jail.
Yeah.
So this
It's
is
like indulgences.
this is a big issue in New York because crime went up because they ended cash bail, and this is a progressive issue. Like AOC is very much in favor of ending cash bail, and I completely agree with her. The idea that there's like some working class dude who gets arrested and accused of a crime, and then they say, now you're going to sit in jail for 2 months until your court date, you lose your job, you lose your apartment, your family doesn't know where you are, or things of that nature. It happens to people because you didn't have the $1,000 to pay bail, I think is wrong.
What we need is a much speedier court system. I mean, we have such
Exactly.
a slow. There was a young man who actually died in prison because he couldn't afford bail, and it was over a stolen backpack, and he didn't do it. And I think he died in like Rikers or something like that.
You are innocent until proven guilty. The state should not have the ability to punish you in any way unless it's a violent crime with probable cause, and the judge can actually.
What about
say
recidivism? What about like recidivism? Do you have a?
Well, in what capacity? What do you mean?
Like if you're arrested multiple times for violations, for crimes, is there any point at which the state can hold you? Like,
yes.
There was somebody recently, I think it was like killed people. We want to cover a lot of this stuff. I'm not remembering the story, but like someone was arrested a bunch of times on gun charges.
Well,
kept being released, and then
see, that's the problem. It's the tyranny. If somebody is arrested on a violent crime and they say, "Here's the person, Your Honor, here's our probable cause as to why we believe this person did this," the judge will then say, like, due to the threat, you are remanded to custody.
Right.
That makes sense. If it's someone who is like a non-violent offender, and this is what the progressives did. I'll tell you what they did wrong, though. When they say, this guy was arrested for shoplifting, and say, what's your probable cause? Well, what witnesses say he was shoplifting, that's not good enough. But we're going to hold him. No, cash bail is basically remand. Okay, that's not fair to someone who's working class and can't afford it. The problem is you can't defend yourself.
Right.
You can't defend yourself. You are not secure in your person. So what happens is there was one guy who he was shoplifting like 30 times.
Right.
And they kept arresting him and cutting him loose because the end of cash bail. And then he laughed when he was getting arrested. I guess he said something like, "I just keep doing it. You keep letting me go." It's like he was absolutely flouting the rules. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
See, there's limits. If someone does it multiple times and you're like, "Your Honor, this is the third time this person's been arrested. We have numerous witness statements. Here are the statements." The judge can be like, "Okay, you're not getting out this time, dude."
I think we really need a much speedier trial system.
How do you do it when you got 13 million people in one city, a court in every corner?
13 million? What's our
the greater
13?
metropolitan area of New York. The people who come into the city.
Well,
and
the
then
greater
come
metropolitan
out.
area of New York, though, I mean, you don't have, like, all of those people aren't subject to the same courts. Those
No,
are,
if the people who come into and out of New York.
Oh, I
so
see.
you can live in Jersey and drive into New York for work and then get arrested and then you're in the system.
You end up in the Tombs, whatever else.
Yep, end up in the Tombs. What an awful name.
It is awful.
Thanks.
I remember when a friend of mine was like, he was like, I just spent the whole weekend in the Tombs.
This is what happens. Police officers know
because they
that
arrest you Friday, you can't get out till Monday.
exactly, and that could mean you lose your job.
Yep.
So
he didn't have one, so it was okay.
I have had friends who have been arrested wrongly on Fridays and then wait until Monday to get out.
Insane.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not
and
good.
they lose their jobs. It's like
it should be 7 days a week.
Two no-call,
The courts,
no-shows
they're
over the
too
weekend.
important to shut down on the weekends.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
insane.
And during COVID, like a lot of the courts were really backed up. A lot of things just didn't happen.
Maybe we need online courts.
I don't know about that.
There's that tendency that people won't
The
fight
problem with
sit at their own neighbors. So maybe
the
we
problem
need
with an
jurors
online
from
court,
elsewhere.
though, is it removes the. It's like we were talking about earlier with Twitter, right? It's like it removes the emotional aspect. So when you're a judge and you see a defendant in a orange jumpsuit on a closed circuit prison camera, are you really going to look at that guy and see his humanity?
Right, no eye contact.
Yeah, there's nothing at all.
So you think there'd be more guilty?
I think there'd be more guilty. Yeah, I mean, I think that we should have a speedy court system where an accused is brought before a judge, brought before a jury. It shouldn't take like months and months and months. Some of these hearings take so long, like just to get to the hearing.
Too many people. Yeah, one of the things that's it is relatively easier for certain crimes where it's like the cops themselves witness it, and they say we are witnesses, but then they're still agents of the state, so it's very difficult. I don't like the idea that credibility is given to the agents of the state. Two people walk into a court, the cop says this guy stole a banana, and then the guy says no, I didn't. The cop says yes, he did. The court just believes the cop.
Right.
Oh, you arrested him, and the cop's probably telling the truth, and the jury just believes the cop. This is
and
why
there are, of course, instances where the police then plant the banana on the guy.
Well, but yes, but I think the most important thing is that cops can make mistakes. And so I know a lot of people on the left will be like, cops plant drugs. Oh, we've seen it. That body camera footage where the guy puts the drugs and it's under a rock or something. And then
I don't know what that is.
He accidentally turned his camera on when he thought he was turning it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. But more importantly, there's this really famous video on YouTube where a lawyer talks about why you never talk to cops. And he explains that like the cop could mishear you and then tell the jury he confessed. And the jury is going to be like, okay.
Yeah, that's a rule that I grew up with, which is don't ever talk to cops about anything ever.
Anything ever.
If you're ever arrested, shut up.
Anything ever.
Yeah,
Because you never
just shut up.
You never know if you're the suspect. And people are
Right.
like, oh, but if you're just a witness,
and
you didn't
that's
do
what
anything
happens
wrong.
too.
Well,
like,
you don't know that.
That's the thing too. Like, you know, in terms of calling police officers for some reason, if there's something going on, you have to be really careful with that because cops show up and they don't know who is who.
Right.
And so immediately they assume, you know, they can make these assumptions.
It's a difficult job.
Yeah, and we're losing cops constantly.
Well, you know how I feel about that. I'm not going to stand for the cops who are enforcing the lockdowns and mandates and arresting salon owners and letting Antifa go. So there was a woman in Minnesota. She opened her cafe in defiance of the lockdowns and said, you know, screw off. And the sheriffs went and they tracked her down and they arrested
Was
her.
this the bar owner? And she like had a couple of kids and she was trying to.
I don't know about the greater details in that.
Well,
respect.
there might have been another one. Yeah, I don't have
There's
any
tons of them.
respect for officers who are imposing and enforcing lockdowns either. Look what's going on in Australia. What happened to Australia?
Oh man.
Got colonized by the
There was
British.
there was
crazy.
apparently some story about a lady who couldn't even cross over from like one state to the next.
Right.
Like they've actually locked
That's
their states
correct.
down or something.
They've locked down everything. That just seems insane to me.
They've been telling me that it's different areas too. It's very different from area to area.
Right.
Yeah.
But how do you stand for that? Like, how do you look at a police force and say, like, yes, I will stay in my home. One man who was 86 years old died, so 900,000 people have to get locked in their homes.
Yep.
It
What
was
will
it was literally one guy,
Very old.
very old guy who probably died with COVID.
In
Yeah, exactly.
I think this was in Secaucus. I could be wrong. A woman she had a shop, and they locked everything down. The government ordered all businesses to be closed. So she went on Facebook Live and started filming what she had in her store, saying, if anybody wants to buy anything, just comment below. So the cops showed up, knocked on the door, and they said, ma'am, you need to close your shop. And she said, what are you talking about? We are closed. And they're like, no, ma'am, you are trying to sell things online. You have to shut your shop down.
Why can't you sell things online? What about
Because
eBay? Only
for
eBay is allowed to sell things online?
Whatever was going on
And Amazon.
was not about COVID because
Nope.
the cops came and told her to stop live streaming on Facebook.
Yep.
That's insanity.
Where was that?
Secaucus, New Jersey? Is that
I
what you said?
think that's where it was. I have to look it up.
Yeah.
In the
It was
US.
somewhere
That
in
sounds like a
North
New Jersey thing to
Does,
have
doesn't
happen. Yeah, it really does.
And I'm sure it's not the only place.
I was
We
ta-
saw that we saw that they were letting people out of jail, and then they were putting that salon owner in Texas in jail.
Yeah, and she was very forthright. She was like, I have people who work for me, and I don't want them to lose their homes. I told my mom I was thinking about leaving New York. I was like, I don't think I can make this work anymore, Mom. And she's like, just move to Jersey. I was like, no, Mom, that's the same place.
Even worse. Yeah.
It's actually worse.
It's literally the same place.
bad.
It's like
you know?
stinky New York.
It's like,
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. What I don't know about what people in cities should do. I can't predict the future. I do think it'll just start getting worse. I think.
Really?
Definitely.
Do you think, I mean, that's the interesting thing. It's like, where can you go? I was talking to Ben Shapiro about this because I was like, what happens when people, he was calling it like the big sort, like there's going to be a
Yep.
big sort out. What happens? Like, will it eventually overtake the entire country? Is there anywhere
Balkanization.
that's going to be all right to live?
Probably
Did
like
you- did
another
you-
internet
And just
will
like
spring up.
live like
Did
a
you
free
see-
person. And that's the other thing too. It's like, is there going to be an Amazon for people who don't want to support Jeff Bezos's crazy empire?
I hope so.
Did you see the polling showing that I think it's 37.2% of Americans want their region to separate from the U.S. to form its own regional union?
Really? Which regions won out? Does New England
So
win out?
they yes. So but they're all about a third. So
They'll
they
be crazy there.
they broke up the country into 5 regions. You've got the Pacific region, you've got I think the Heartland region, the Mountain region, the Southern, and the Northeast. And most the plurality in terms of I should phrase this better. On the West Coast, Pacific region, Democrats were the largest group that wanted to secede from the Union. In the South, it was
Interesting.
Republicans.
Yeah.
In the Midwest, it's independent voters.
Okay.
But the overall average among all regions, when I actually went through the math, I went through the population of each state, normalized for population, 37.2% of people in this country are in favor of their area breaking off from the U.S. With the Great Sort, you are going to see those numbers dramatically increase.
Right.
Because the people in the Pacific region, the 30% of Republicans who are there and want to break off, will move to Texas and bolster the Republican number there and increase it. I think 60% of Southern Republicans wanted to break away.
I think that's like, I want to eat cake every day. Like, they don't know what it is they're saying they want. If you want to militarize, you want like a warlike 5 tribal North American, 21st century. That's how you split it up. Then we'll all go to fight each other. That'd be crazy.
That would be pretty crazy, wouldn't it?
But Ian, be nuclear weapons and tanks.
Well, but we wouldn't all have nuclear weapons.
We finally can use our tanks somewhere.
Wouldn't it basically be like Hawaii would have nuclear weapons?
We wouldn't all have nuclear weapons.
Minnesota, I think Minnesota would have nuclear weapons.
And the port cities would be devastated.
How many people understand the policies they're voting for?
Most of them seem not to.
And so when people say,
I don't even think the politicians read the bills sometimes.
You're right, they don't. What was it? The omnibus was wheeled in on a wagon with 5,000 pages and nobody read it?
The Senate just voted for that, but that's ridiculous. The Senate just
the
Senate was asked recently, wasn't it, to vote for the massive, giant, stupid infrastructure bill before it was written, because the House refused to take it up unless the Senate promised that they would pass something that the House drafted.
Oh, come on!
There will be
collusion of the.
Ian, here's what'll happen.
Insanity, and basically nobody read it because it doesn't exist.
There will be
voting
a certain amount of
bills
signatures to get something as a referendum. It'll appear on the ballot in November, and then people will see it. And as we already know, X amount of people in these regions want to secede. So when they're voting, it'll be like, "Would you like your region to become its own region?" They go, "Oh yeah, for sure." And they vote for it. They don't care about the consequences.
The other thing, too, is the way that the laws are named. They're named in very obfuscatory ways, so that you don't really know what you're voting for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like the
Patriot Act.
The Patriot Act is the opposite of the Patriot Act, or like HR1. They call it like a For the People Act. It's not at all. It's actually so overreaching and authoritarian and
16-year-olds voting.
Yes, that's what it has in it. It has a provision that you have to register people who are under 18 to vote.
Amazing.
That's in it.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.